Do you remember like ever running a story where you later got in any trouble for or wish that you perhaps did not publish the story? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the Mo Show podcast, episode 21. My guest today comes from an illustrious media background. He is the chairman of Al-Bilad Media and Publishing Company, managing partner of Quartz Communications, and the director of Abeer Medical Group. He's been in the media industry for over 30 years, most notably as the editor-in-chief at Arab News. Tonight, I'm in the midst of incredible company, as it's an absolute honor for me to introduce media mogul Uncle Khaled Al Maeena. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for being on the show, Khalid.
It'll be my pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine. Khalid, I have so much that I can talk to you about, but I want to start with what was your background like growing up, and where did you, do your studying back when you were a student?
Well, I went to school in Pakistan. Our family had business for generations in the subcontinent, my grand-uncles and my uncles and my grandfather. And I went to an Irish Catholic school, St. Patrick's, and then college, studied there, and then finished university, me and my cousins, then came to Saudi Arabia, and then afterwards went to the States and did a one-year course in Washington, and then joined the Airlines, Saudi Airlines, for some time.
Yeah. You mentioned that my father had something to do with that.
Yes, your father, a great friend of ours and a guide and a mentor, guided me to the airline, and he said, why don't you come and see the airline? So I went the first day, met him, he poured coffee for me. I was very impressed to see clean, neat offices, people all on time, talking, and I decided that for me the airline, which was at that time managed by TWA, would be the right place for me.
Was it like a joint venture back then, Saudi Airlines and TWA?
TWA was supervising Saudi Airlines and trying to groom up new managers, and your father was one of the first Saudi managers who held a position down there, and then we joined in as graduate programs. So there were 14 Saudi graduates.
Oh, wow.
I was one of them.
Fantastic. And where did your career take you after your venture in the airline business?
Well, I was always interested in the media, and I was in the airline. I used to go in the evening to read the news on Radio Jeddah. There was only one radio station in English and one in Arabic. Again, your father used to read along with some other people, like the late Muhammad Al-Fawzan and other people, and Shu'a Rashid. Yeah. And that's how I started liking it. And then in 75, they had the Arab News came, and I used to read the paper. It was a 12-page paper in those days. It was the only source of news. We used to be listeners to the radio, the BBC, the Voice of America, Sawt al-Arab from Cairo. Yeah. There were not many areas where we could go in and get our news feed. So these were some of the issues that were relevant to us.
Were the number of English-speaking Saudis back then very few, would you say?
Yes, there were few. I mean, a lot of people knew English, but people who really were able to converse very well in English were very few.
Okay, all right. Khalid, how difficult was it for you to, reach the heights that you ultimately did as editor-in-chief for as long as I can remember? Was it a very bumpy road, or did you feel like it was effortless?
Well, you'll be surprised. I never worked in a paper. I had never been inside a paper. And the day I went in, I was the editor-in-chief.
From day one?
From day one. It was a bit of a shock for me. My mother cried. She didn't want me to go in the newspapers. You know that how the news is, and please don't go, and it's not this. But I was just asked by the Hafiz brothers, Hisham and Muhammad Ali Hafiz, to come and see them. And I went down there, and they just laid a piece of paper, white, and said, please name your salary. And I had no idea. I had never worked in a paper, so I went to visit another Islam, Dr. Saud Islam, who was the editor of the Saudi Gazette.
Okay.
And I told him that, how much? And he guards his salary very religiously. He said, I won't tell you. I said, yeah, but give me a yardstick, which he never did. So then I just had a figure, and they accepted it, and then I was there.
Amazing.
Yes.
Brilliant. What are your thoughts on how the industry have changed? I mean, you have seen the world go from paper, print, to what we're seeing today. Is there a specific era, or do you prefer a specific era to the way media has been handled over the years?
Yes, I think the post 2010, when you had all these other means of communication, and you had these the Snapchats, the Facebooks, and the Twitter and the Instagrams and all, they sort of affected the main news feed. And then, of course, there was an attack on the print media by the environmentalists who talked about trees being cut down. Technology came in, use less paper, don't spoil the environment. So people started reading paper online and on the phone and their apps. And so this was a turning point. But mainly after 2010, I think the big impact on the
digital transformation. It was a lot harder, I think, back then to be in the industry, because what you put out there, there's no going back from. There's no delete button. If any publication today to send a tweet or an article, they can remove it, a second later. But back then, I would imagine, you really need to be on your toes with what you put out there, because there's no going back from that. Do you remember ever running a story where you later got in any trouble for, or wished that you perhaps did not publish the story? Well,
many times. Now, with the thing that you said, that people say they deleted, then they can also, if not delete, they'll say, we were hacked and somebody put it on. And it has been done by people. I know even some of the major sites who did put something in order to avoid any legal attacks on them. They said, we're sorry, but we didn't put this. But in the days of print, it's printed and that's it. Well, there were many. There was a story about the wheat production that we had, and we said that the Saudi government has stopped buying wheat because the silos were full and they didn't want to buy more. The Financial Times, I think it was, ran a story that they stopped because there was no liquidity, and that caused a great problem. And it was my first time to run afoul of the law, as many others. And then there was another story that appeared while I was away about the assassination fatwa against Mubarak, and then I had to pay the price because I was asked to leave. So these were kind of stories that we had. But there were many others too, where it was just you were saved by the skin of your teeth.
Definitely a lot more challenging to be in that kind of business back then in comparison to today.
Yes.
What would you say is your most favorite part of the job? I mean, you were there for 30 years and you're still in the media business. What do you really enjoy about it?
Well, coming in the morning, sitting, it was not that we cut and paste as is nowadays in many of these, other forms of media. We would come and sit, create a story. Remember, we were living also in the Arab world, where the freedom ceiling, as they say, Saqf al-Hurriya, was not that high. But still, there were many areas that we could focus on. I focused on women's rights. We focused on, because many of our readers, 70% were expatriates, so we were sort of focused on the plight of the expatriates, their problems, their issues. We also, Saudi Arabia had gone through 2 booms while I was there in the Arab news, so we focused on the increased economic enhancement. We focused on so many other issues.
There's actually a story that I didn't tell you before we started this podcast that I'm going to tell you right now. I remember back in 1995 when I started school in England, there was an English teacher there, and probably the best English teacher I've ever had. His name was David Alloway. David said, Mo, next time you go to Saudi, can you get me a newspaper of your local print? I'm like, absolutely, sure, I will. And this guy was so meticulous. Like, he would, if the letter is not on the line, I'm doing detention lines. Got him a paper, brought it back, and I'm like, okay, here we go. He's gonna have a preconception of Saudi based on this paper. He opens it, read through it in about 5 or 10 minutes, and he looked up at me and he's like, I am very impressed with the level of English that is coming out of Saudi Arabia. I didn't think that there was even an English paper coming out of Saudi, let alone one done, so correct grammatically and flawlessly. And this is coming from a guy who eventually made millions of pounds by selling detention papers to schools all over the UK. He left our school 2 or 3 years later, and he became famous for initiating detention papers. And he was very fond of the Arab newspaper. I went with the Gazette as well, which did not raise any eyebrows of his. He was more impressed with the Arab News one.
Well, the Arab News, in all honesty, not because I was there, it was founded by two legendary brothers, and the thing was that we catered to the needs of the people. We became a voice for the voiceless.
Okay.
We became a refuge for the expatriates. Not many people, as we mentioned before, knew English. So if there was any problem, they would just call us or come to us. So it was more like an Aunt Abby agony column rather than just being the editor.
Yeah.
At times, my staff would get upset. They say, this is not journalism. People come to you for the problem. And I said, what's the role of a newspaper is to sort of help our readers.
Correct.
And we had different types of readers, different nationalities,
Yeah.
and we went and stuck our neck out on so many issues. We challenged companies, we challenged employers, we got people out of jail, which was not basically our core issue, but we still did it.
Yeah. Influence, strong influence on what's happening here on the ground. Since you're still in the media industry, it's something very close to your heart. Are there any parts of the industry that you don't like? Any negative areas?
At the moment or before?
In general, like something that just upsets you about the media business?
Well, I don't like the holier than thou writers, those who think that they are the people that people should follow, opinionated and other issues, and those who are not willing to listen to the other side. There are many columnists in that, and sometimes newspapers pick up the cudgel on behalf of certain issue which they think is very near and dear to them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have to be fair, we have to be balanced, we have to look into the other sides, and we have to have empathy for the others. So this is lacking at times, especially these days where you become jingoistic. It's me against the other, and suddenly if there's any criticism or critique of one's city or one's organization or of one's nation, you sort of just go out of control and attack the other side.
Yeah, I could pick up on agendas from a mile away. Like, it's so clear, especially with Western media. You have one of the big ones clearly pushing one direction and the other one, pushing another direction. And I think it lacks realism today. It's so dictated from above, and it's obvious for me, even for someone like me who knows nothing about the media industry. What would you change about the industry if you could change one thing?
Is to change or lessen the control of big business on the media, and of the authority in some areas on the media, and to have less control so that you can allow people to sort of speak out their minds, focus on issues that are of paramount interest to the people. But at the same time, those in charge of the media also should be fair, balanced, and able to sort of sift through right and wrong and come up with something that is of helping the welfare of the people.
I think we do a better job here than they do in the West, in terms of less influence from corporations and so forth.
Yes,
like more real. I feel.
Yes, I think in the West also they become very opinionated.
Yeah.
And if they say or write something is difficult for you to sort of, change their mindset. I remember there was an article in a paper in Texas attacking Saudi Arabia. It was totally false. If there was a segment of truth, I would have accepted it. I wrote 11 letters to the editor. None of them were published.
Agenda driven.
Yes.
Yeah. What's one of the more memorable stories, or one of your favorite stories that you can recall?
Well, my favorite stories were the Kuwait, invasion of Kuwait. That was a story with the Arab News. We were there on the 8th of August. It happened on the 2nd. On the 8th, we were there. But through a lot of trauma, in the sense that August the 2nd invasion, and then there was a small directive that don't write about it. And I was almost pleading, how can you not write? And CNN was there. CNN had just started. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the things. Other stories that we covered were the great rape case in the eastern province. We really pushed through to see that the perpetrators were taken to task. They were from before, but we wanted people to know about it because the Western press was writing all nonsensical things. I am for freedom of the press, but CNN and others were coming and giving a totally distorted version of what happened.
Khalid, I would imagine that you have met some very influential people over the time. Is there someone that jumps off the page, someone that you really, really enjoyed meeting, looking back?
Well, I met Mr. Mandela, and we had a long talk. And Mandela was somebody who accepted the fact that he had committed many mistakes. And Mandela said he was happy that he was released after communism died. And he said the reason is because he felt that when he comes out, the first thing he would do is to nationalize all the white-owned businesses. But communism had died. Then he realized that if he does that, South Africa will go broke because they owned all the companies, and the African natives were not in a position to manage these businesses. So he had that famous Truth and Reconciliation program where there was, he showed a lot of openness to the people who were the detractors who put him in jail.
Do you frequent South Africa? You mentioned something about going recently. Is it a country you go to often? My trainer can't stop talking about how difficult things are, how difficult times are for the people of South Africa. I feel like it was run better when Mandela was around, as opposed to what's happening there today, which, is chaos as he describes it.
Liberation movements don't always make good governments. The problem with Africa was that a lot of these liberation movements, when colonialism died, they took over as governors and government and all, and they couldn't manage. I truly believe that, people who know how to manage should be put in place. Yeah. Once these revolutionary wars are over, I think revolutionaries should go back to their homes rather than become presidents for life and do. And this is the problem with Africa.
You look at how Rwanda turned it around. I mean, only in the genocide was in 93 or 94.
Yes.
And now it's an emerging market. It's prosperous, it's safe, it's really on its way up. And it's just a beautiful story how they turned it around.
Africa has so much potential and so many people. The idea that we think of the Africans as backward is nonsense. There's so much culture. You go to the Senegal, you go to Ghana, Mali, Mauritania, Timbuktu. They're great places.
Have you visited? Have you been there?
No, I haven't been to Timbuktu. In Africa, I've been to Somalia, to Sudan, South Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's nature there. People go there just for, the safaris, and there's just so much to see there. With everything that's been happening here in Saudi the last couple of years, did you ever imagine that you'd see the changes that you've seen in such a short time? Did you think that day would come where, the reforms and the women empowerment and a lot more freedom than 10 or 15 or 20 years ago? Did you think you'd see that?
Well, the changes were very fast and mind-boggling. Yes, the changes didn't come suddenly. Let's also give credit to those who were there before us.
Correct.
I mean, like, for example, the education for women has been there for more than 60 years. Doctors, nurses, to a certain extent, teachers, scientists, they were there, media personalities. But you're right, there was a stage where there was a kind of slowdown when you had these religious extremists. And I don't call them religious because it has nothing to do with extremists, let's say, or ideologues try to impose their will on people and arrest the development of society. So societal expectations were not high. But in all honesty, what has happened in the last 3 years is something that one is slowly beginning to realize. It's like you've woken up from a lethargic dream. And dreams can also be lethargic. You just wake up like that and things are happening. And I mean, the Upshur thing, women going out. I remember my wife went to the courthouse with her father for some, settlement of some land things they had to finish. And the judge told her, please face the wall. So that has changed. And I am sort of not I'm not exaggerating, but you're right. Things have really changed. I have never seen the amount of young people buzzing around like they are doing now. And it's very strange. You go to places, kids, young people are heading multi-million-dollar organizations, ministries, deputy ministers, ambassadors and all, and qualified. You see, this is very important.
There's a buzz in the air. There's a lot of excitement in the air.
But it has a flip side to it. And one of the things I would like to advise young people is also not to sort of get carried away. I still would also advise in many ways corporations and even those in authority that you should, marry the old with the young, in the sense that have a few mentors who could mentor some of these people, because it's very important for you not to get carried away.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Education. Are you of the belief that the landscape is on the verge of changing? I'll tell you why I say that. Because people with a smartphone and access to internet can learn anything they want today. I learned everything I needed to know about entering the industry of podcasting via the internet. We didn't have the internet 15 years ago, at least not people in third world countries had internet 10 or 15 years ago. But do you think with the access to the internet and the smartphone, the educational landscape can change going forward?
I think it's already done that. Remember, if you notice the past few months, the COVID months, people are now going to distance learning. Mm-hmm. People already are searching the net. If I want to find something, I go through the net. Yeah. When I joined Arab News, until 2000, one would not. But right now we are looking at new features. People are learning more about COVID from the net. Yeah. People, those who are diabetic are learning how to be treated through. So I think the internet, yes, the knowledge, it has two ways. One, of course, the logical, natural flow of education. But at the same time, the internet is also filled with horror stories, how to kill yourself. Yeah. So these kind of issues, one should be very careful. Yes.
Do you think it's endangering any professions or careers? Because I heard of a profession that is endangered. Lawyers.
Mm-hmm. In America, legal secretaries, a lot of them, through artificial intelligence, might lose their jobs. And this I heard about 4 years ago when I was giving a lecture at the University of Central Florida. And you're right, that even it also, you go to distance help. Mm-hmm. For example, why would you employ a full-time translator? My translator lives in Canada. My rewrite man or the editor would be in India or Australia. So these are the issues, yes. Yeah. And people would then work more from home because they get a chance to do that. They can, people could outsource these things, yes. Mm-hmm. So many professions are going to be affected by this.
Yeah. I've heard actually on another podcast someone saying that Corona or COVID-19 only accelerated the future. It brought what was going to be here in 5, 10, 15 years now.
Yes.
And just imagine how much time is in people's pockets now that would be spent on commute. Now people are at home. They, I think the average global commute is 45 minutes. That's an hour and a half in your pocket to learn something, to do something. I think working from home or studying from home, I feel that it's just going to get more popular.
Now, apart from the learning, also it's sort of, you avoid heartaches and you avoid, these crazy driving, as you said, commuting. You avoid many things. Like here, I wanted a passport. I just filled the upshir. They told me to come in 3 days. In the old days, you have to have mu'aggib, you go yourself, you stamp it, and all. 5, 6 days, they will lose your passport. I just got it in 3 days.
Yeah, it's become so much easier.
Yes.
Would you say, Khalid, that you have accomplished everything that you wanted to accomplish when you were younger?
I don't think so. I think we should. I am one of those people who subscribe to the view that you are there till the last day. There are many things I would like to do. I would like to mentor young people. I wish I could have a program where I would take people on journeys across, take them to countries, talk to them about it. I would like to mentor people in sports. Or I'm not a sportsman now. I don't play.
But you like your cricket?
Cricket and tennis, but I would really like to have a Saudi cricket team.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I see people playing cricket around town.
Mainly expatriates, but before we used to have, your uncles used to play, the late Mohammed Al-Fawzan, bin Zagars, quite a few Saudi families in Jeddah used to play cricket.
Enough to field the team.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, we had. It was Saudi 11.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're still going to the office every day. You very graciously invited me to your office. We had a chat a few months ago. And I'm just wondering, is retirement ever in your plans? And forgive me for asking such a personal question, but have you thought about retirement?
No, you see, retirement, if you retire from life. I don't want to just sit and potter around in the house. I like to do things. And if in any way I can enhance the quality of life around me of someone or help people, that I think would be a great gift from God to me and from me to then to other people. I read a book which was given to me by my good friend Amr Khashoggi. It was called Rewired. So we are not retired, we are rewired, and we do other things. I am now with Abeer Medical Group. I advise them, I'm director there, and I discovered a whole new area, the medical field. And now people used to phone me about media, now they talk to me about the medical situation here in the medical industry. So one does. Of course, you have to be very careful that also you should, at the same time, while going around doing your own thing, you should not neglect the family. This is very important.
Number one.
Yes. We lived in a house with 5, 6 uncles and cousins and all, and then of course now you have the nucleus family. It's also very important to focus on your children, be a mentor to them, be a guide, and do other things. So while I like to go around, I don't think so I like to retire. I mean, you would be doing a few things, not necessarily work to make money, but do something, because I believe in this world there are 2 types of people. The one who live and die and we all have to go away, and the other is that when we go away, people will remember us for the quality of life we enhanced and for whom we did and for what we did for others.
Absolutely. The legacy you leave behind.
Yes.
What advice, Khalid, do you have for someone entering the media business in 2021? A youngster entering the field. Do you have any words for such a person?
First of all, see to it that you have total command of the language, Arabic or English, whichever media section you choose. Number one, knowledge. Be well read. Without being well read and without having acquired knowledge and not be specialized, you cannot write about everything. Before a writer would write about anything. If you want to focus on the energy business, you better be fully, and not an expert, but fully aware of what's going on. So for young people, I think the idea is to focus on the type of reporting they would like. Yeah. Now, there aren't any papers like before, so even if you're an editor, you have to encompass everything that's coming in. At the same time, if you want to lead an organization, then you also have to be a good manager. Yeah. But for just entering the media business, I think you have to be well-read.
Yeah, absolutely.
And truthful to yourself.
Exactly, yeah. Well, Khalid, thank you so much for taking time and coming on the show today. And I just want to extend an extra appreciation for you reaching out to me. Upon hearing, I think it was episode 6, Asya Khashoggi's episode, you reached out to me, you called me, you gave me so much encouragement that did to me more than you know, honestly. And I'll never forget that, because it really boosted me, it lifted my self-esteem, and it made me believe in what I'm doing. And coming from you, it's something that I will never ever forget. And I appreciate you calling me into your office and the 2 hours that I kept you from your busy day and having a conversation. I really appreciate all the support you've given me, and I will remember it for life. So
well, you don't have to thank me. I mean, it's I'm a relay runner. I passed the baton to somebody else, and I had great teachers. Some of them are no more, and I had great relatives and grand-uncles and uncles who taught me something, and I truly believe that I'm in a position to sort of pass this on, and I'll still keep on doing it. So if you have other people wanting to have a chat, I can assure you I won't bore them.
Not at all. It's such an honor for you to say those words to me, honestly.
Thank you.
Like it keeps me going.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for coming into the studio and sharing, so many amazing stories. Is there anything you want to end on? Any advice or quotes or anything you want to close with before we let you go?
I think 2 things we should have, all of us as human beings, and I think humility and empathy is a very important issue. And I think I notice a lot of young people, strut around like peacocks because for whatever reason, their wealth or position or power, I think they should, sort of be comfortable in their own skins and remember that this is a world, it's just a passing phase from one darkness that before we're born, another darkness when we go away. Yeah. And therefore we should have empathy, compassion, for our fellow human being.
Absolutely.
And that's what our ideology and religion teaches us.
Amazing words, really well put. Thank you so much again, Khalid, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and stories. Absolute honor to have you on the show, and thank you for being a believer and a supporter of the show.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. And
pleasure is all mine. I'm Khalid. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Bye-bye.